Hey piano people! In this video, we're going to talk about 3 steps to improve your piano technique today. These are things that you can immediately start to pay attention to and immediately start to incorporate into your practice to support healthy foundations for a better technique. I'm going to give you 3 steps or 3 points, and each of those points is going to have 3 little sub-points or suggestions of things that you can actually do in your practice. This video was inspired because I've been getting questions about technique all over the place. It's something that people really struggle with, and it's a tough thing because it's so individual to the person and the instrument and your goals. But the 3 things that I'm going to talk about are areas where I see tons of mistakes and tons of really common errors. And so if you can start with these 3 things, you will see improvement as soon as you incorporate these 3 things into your practice. So the first step is to get in touch with your body. Technique really just means being able to utilize our body and our instrument in the proper way to get the sound that we want out of the piano. And we can't utilize our body in the proper way unless we are in touch with what's going on and with the various parts of the body that we need to produce a sound at the piano. So there's 3 things I want you to think about. 1, your alignment. And your alignment is how you're sitting at the piano. You need to make sure that you're sitting up nice and tall and that your shoulders are relaxed. We don't want them coming up to our ears. You want to make sure that you're sitting at the proper distance from the piano and at the proper height. That is a big one, and that is one that I see people doing wrong all the time. We want this 90-degree angle, and if we are sitting too low or too high, we're not going to have that 90-degree angle. One of the best investments that you can make for proper piano technique is an adjustable bench, if it's possible, and I'll link to my favorite one in the description below. I also have a lot of videos about piano alignment, and I'll link to one of those where if you are unsure of what proper piano alignment is, you can go ahead and check out that video to make sure that you've got your bases covered. Another thing that we can do to get in touch with our body is to practice mindfulness. And really what it means is we can just pay attention, right? We can pay attention and start to notice, are there certain points in our practice that stress us out? Are there certain parts of certain pieces that make us tense? For me, repeated octaves or big chords scare me. And so whenever they come up in music, I know because I pay attention that I tend to raise my shoulders up to my ears, and I know that I tend to clench my jaw because I'm nervous and anxious about those sections of the music. And when I practice mindfulness or paying attention, I can become aware of those things, and then I can come up with ways to combat those things. So I can write relax in my music, or I can remember to take a big deep breath at that point in the music because I'm mindful of what's going on in my body when I'm playing the piano. The third way that we can get in touch with our body is we can think about how we are utilizing the weight of our arms. Sound production at the piano is all about weight dropping into the keys. And so we want to make sure that our wrists are flexible, we want to make sure that our shoulders and our elbows are flexible, and we want to play around with how much weight it takes to drop into the keys to produce a sound. What we don't want to do is let all of the sound be produced just by the movement of our fingers. That's not going to get us very far, and that's a terrible habit as far as proper piano technique goes. All right, the second step to improve your piano technique today is to pay attention to fingering. Fingering is so important for many reasons, and I just filmed an entire video that was all about fingering rules for the piano, and I'll link that in the description below. But 3 things we can think about when it comes to paying attention to fingering would be to follow the fingering in the music that you're using. If you're not using a score that has fingering, then I would suggest finding some scores that have fingering. So things like adult piano method books or downloadable sheet music from sites that are reputable and that have fingering. A really great one is like sheetmusicplus.com, and I'll link that one in the description below. Or another really great one is Making Music Fun. I use them all the time. I'll link that in the description as well. And those 2 sites are pretty good at having proper fingering written down in their scores. The second thing you can do to pay attention to fingering is to watch that video that I just released about proper fingering and make sure that you understand some of the really basic principles and rules about how to make decisions about proper fingering when you're playing the piano. And then a third way that you can help yourself get better at fingering so that you can pay better attention in your music is to practice scales and chords and arpeggios and all of those foundational exercises that we use at the piano to help us build our knowledge of piano fingering. Obviously, when you practice those things, you want to make sure that you're using the proper fingering or it defeats the purpose. And there's a really great scale book that I use. I'll link it in the description below, and that'll help get you in touch with paying attention to fingering. The third step that you can take to improve your piano technique starting today is to make sure that you have the proper setup. It doesn't really matter if you have a keyboard or a piano, but it does matter that you utilize the instrument in the best way to support your proper alignment, which will ultimately support your proper technique. Obviously, we are all in our own unique situations, and it's not possible for everybody to have a certain kind of piano or a certain kind of keyboard, but if you can have a real piano, that's ideal. I know we all know that. If not, if it's possible for you to get a weighted keyboard, that is by far the best option, because that's going to give you the closest imitation of the sound of a piano, and it's also going to support proper technique because of the way that the mechanism works and the way that it still is weight and touch sensitive. I'll link to my favorite affordable keyboard in the description below. You definitely want to have an adjustable bench if possible. That will support you sitting at the proper height, which will get you in the proper alignment, and it makes a huge difference. I've seen people with every kind of setup, standing up, keyboards on tables, keyboards on floors. I've encountered people that have keyboards on their beds. There are lots of different variations, but if you can get your keyboard on a solid surface and you can sit at the proper height, it's going to make a world of difference in how you sound. If it can be a full-size keyboard, that's also going to make a world of difference in how you sound and in your piano technique, because you're going to have access to the full range of sounds and your body can stay in tune with what it's like to feel the whole piano, as opposed to a keyboard that's not full size. We get used to playing in one range, which doesn't totally support that proper alignment and proper technique. I'd be super curious to know what your setup is, and you'll have to let me know in the comments below. And if you're finding this video helpful, go ahead and give it a thumbs up so that other people can find it as well. And make sure that you're subscribed to my channel and click the bell so that you can stay up to date with all of my helpful videos. Go ahead and check in with that video about piano alignment just to make sure that you are off to the right start, and you can do that right here.